Hello and welcome into the KE Report. I'm your host, Shad Markwitz, and today we're getting an update on Blackrock Silver. Blackrock is traded on the TSX.V under the ticker BRC and on the OTCQX under the ticker BKRRF. I'm joined today with the president and CEO of Blackrock Silver, Andrew Pollard. And Andrew, always great getting you on the show to get an update. In this case, you guys have some good drill news that we can dig into here, put out to the marketplace just on the 31st of March, yesterday. Now, before we dig into that, I think it's important to remind people just how much drilling you've been doing this year. This is part of your M&I conversion drilling. There's a little bit of expansion drilling in there too, but you had 20,000 meters you drilled up through, the end of last year, and you tacked on another 15,000 meters to it that you're drilling through May. Just give us a sense of the overall work you've done already, just the end of last year through the beginning of this year.
Yeah, thanks, Shad. Yeah, it's always great to be on here. And certainly after the announcement we made on the 31st, I'm very happy to come out here and tell everyone about it. Yeah, so I guess as Rick Rule says, value creation in the industry is done by answering the unanswered questions with a project. And with us, the two unanswered questions that we've been tackling with the drills since we got going on our program in July of last year was how big can this thing possibly get? Like, what's the actual scale of the project? And the other is, are the ounces really as good as they look? I.e., does the high grade hang together? So, this has been our most ambitious push on the drills in years, tackling both of those. So, a substantial amount of drilling was done last year. As you said, we did 20,000 meters in the 6 months from summer. And then with the financing that we did in January, that gave us some great optionality to scale up the program on both the M&I conversion program and our expansion program. And right now, I mean, we're reaping the rewards in terms of the value that we're creating. In addition to the drilling, I mean, the next year or so is going to be one of the most productive years in terms of driving intrinsic value at the project level. Everything that we're doing right now through the end of May, which is when we're going to be shutting down this aspect of the program, will be quantified in a resource update on track for September. That's going to be very, very big for us because right now, we're the only large advanced exploration and developer that's with 100% inferred ounces. We're going to be converting a meaningful amount of those ounces to M&I, which I think is really going to increase the confidence of the project entirely, but also really help with respect to our valuation. I think the M&I grade profile that we come out with is going to be unrivaled in the industry when all is said and done. But the expansion results, I mean, my goodness, we've been firing on all cylinders. A month ago, I think when I was on here, I mentioned that we'd stepped out from the outer margins of our DPB resource area by 500 meters to the northwest. And just on the 31st, yeah, we announced that we've hit a brand new zone of mineralization 1.2 kilometers from the eastern margin of the DPB area, looking like it's the extension of the Merton vein all the way to one of the great historic producers of the Tonopah Silver District, which was the Ohio mine and shaft, where they were mining. It was the second thickest vein in the district. Historically, was mined up to 15 meters, and it looks like we've just found the extension of that.
Yeah, Andrew, it looks pretty exciting here. Most of the drilling we have been discussing has been the M&I conversion drilling, but when you do a scout drill program like this, you step out 1.2 kilometers and you keep hitting pay dirt. Pretty exciting to see the resource size, the footprint size keep expanding, like you say, over towards that Ohio target. I guess give us a sense of, I guess you had 7 drill holes that came out here on this scout drill program. Give us some more color about some of the individual holes or the key takeaways you want people to know about just how the resource is expanding in this direction to the east.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is an area that we really haven't drilled in about 4 years, back when our understanding of the project and the geology in terms of which way the vein systems were swinging it had far less resolution to what we got now. So, yeah, we hit on 7 holes across what we see as being the Merton vein over 1.2 kilometers. And I mean, we were hitting phenomenal grade. We hit 4 meters of just under a kilogram per ton in one area. Out by Ohio, we finally found what we see as the extension of the unmined portion of that vein that those old timers were on 100 years ago, where we hit, multiple intercepts, a meter and a half of 2 kilograms per ton. And we got a whole confluence of holes starting from the margin of the DPB resource area up to about 540 meters, which is clearly the Merton vein. We've got 4 or 5 holes there, all hitting really, really good grades, up to 4 meters, with multiple holes hitting in excess of a kilo. Yeah, that concept's really come to light. This is an area, because we didn't have much success on it 4 years ago, we've never really talked about it in terms of upside potential for the project. So to step out 1.2 kilometers on what is effectively a brand new structural zone for us on the highest grade project in the industry amongst the developers is absolutely huge. It blows the door off of where this thing could possibly get. And, we've got more assays from that zone pending. All of this drilling was done with our C rig, which is why it's Scout. We just wanted to test some concepts and we drilled 10 holes. All of them encountered gold and silver. 7 of them encountered high grade gold and silver. The other 3 were below cutoff, but, I think we hit them in the wrong rock package. So it's looking really, really good in terms of expansion opportunities there. It's looking good to the northwest in terms of expansion opportunities there. So, I think we don't have a 100 million ounce project, it's safe to say, any longer. I think, between now and our next few resources, things are going to materially get better and better.
Well, in addition to growing the footprint to the northwest and the east, you're also improving the grade profile. We talked about this a little bit last time, but I think it's worth reiterating, Andrew, that you already have one of the highest grade projects that's in development on the planet for the silver space, and your bycredit here is gold, so it's not a bad bycredit to have. It's not lead and zinc and copper, things like that. But some of these silver equivalent, just on the holes you just stepped out to here in the scout drilling with the RC drilling, 1,900 grams per ton silver equivalent, 2,000 grams per ton silver equivalent. So these are almost 1.5 to 2 kilo hits over several meters. The grade profile of the project has to be coming up overall as well. So not just the continuity improving, but also the grade profile. So just speak to why that's so significant from an economic standpoint.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the M&I, the logic behind where our M&I program is we're using the mine plan from the PEA that was tabled in September of last year to effectively drill out the first 2 to 3 years of anticipated production. So we're targeting and de-risking through the early years to make that development decision to go underground as bulletproof as it possibly gets. And that M&I conversion program, I mean, the early years of mining, our near surface stuff, that already is going to be, it's got to be one of the highest grade structures in the world. If you look at our PEA, the stope you're in through the first few years of production, that stope's laid out at 981 grams per ton. That's just based off of our inferred drilling so far. Our M&I numbers, just as a function of tightening up the drill spacing and assuming we were just hitting stuff that was in line with what we're already seeing, that grade profile would ratchet up anyways. But we've hit some of our highest grade intercepts ever at the project on this M&I conversion program. We hit up to 8.5 kilos there. So I expect the grade profile, especially in the early years on that M&I number, to be through the roof. And that, if you can get higher grade tons through the mill early on, that's going to have a huge positive consequence for the economics. Adding ounces at the back end of the mine life is all well and good, but those get discounted to kingdom come when you're looking at, years 8, 9, 10, maybe 11, 12. But front loading ultra high grade tons through the mill in years 1, 2, and 3, that's going to have the highest leverage in terms of the economics. And I think, of all the re-rates that we've got ahead of us, from the M&I program to adding our expansion ounces to, whatever drill results we might put out along the way, and our permitting and PEA, I think the biggest bump we'll get is by this M&I resource that we have tabled for September. Because once again, I think there's a valuation gap between how our ounces are trading in terms of our ounce in the ground valuation and some of the other high grade stories in the industry. And that's simply a function of we're the only one that's 100% inferred right now. Once we get that out there, I think that gap is really going to move. And once we also get that out there, it's very, very easy for analysts and investors alone to start incorporating those updated numbers into a mine plan and cash flow analysis. So we might even get whatever bump we might get from a PEA next year, we'll probably get as soon as we come out with this resource in September, because it'll be so straightforward to see the effect on the economics.
Well, let's dig into that area between this September when the resource comes out and the PEA because you still have another resource you want to put out in between there that will be an expansion resource. So you really have two resource updates coming up. The M&I, the measured and indicated, jumping the categories, comes out in September. Like you say, that should be a significant milestone for the company, but you're not done there. You're going to go back and keep doing more expansion drilling after that, keep pressing the envelope. Maybe you go back to an area like the one we just discussed here today, and you hit it with the diamond drills instead of the RC drills. But
Yeah,
you're gonna be expanding. So maybe talk to us about that expanded resource that then stair steps into the next economic study.
yeah, well, we're firing off on all three aspects of the drilling right now concurrently. I mean, so our M&I program's effectively wrapping up by within the next week or two. But, as you'll see from the last news release, I mean, we've got, I think, 17 drill holes in the lab pending assay already. Three of those core drill holes are targeting this new discovery area that we just announced. So we're working from the outer margins of the existing resource to the east and just infilling there. In addition, we've got quite a few holes from that 500-meter step out to the northwest, which we're circling back. I think we've got 7 drill holes that will complete there. I think 5 of those are already finished on that northwestern extension too, in addition to all of the M&I drill holes that are in the lab. So what the shutting down in May, what that'll allow us to do is just model what we've done to date. I mean, it's been about 11, it'll be 11 straight months on the drills. It's a huge, huge push. Shut down for a few months, let all the results bake in, get those modeled, see if and where any of the gaps remain, especially as it relates to the expansion stuff, so that in the fall we can go back and circle in, close any gaps, or just keep stepping out along the margins to add as many new inferred tons as we possibly can into that January resource. We're not, when I say we're shutting down the drills for May, they're not really going anywhere. What they're going to be doing is the other key aspect, another big deliverable for us is our permitting. So those drills are going to be sticking around to do hydrology drilling for us, which will be a crucial part of our permitting process. Effectively, every single thing we're doing on the ground this year is to put us in a position to make our submission to the regulators next year. Assuming it goes according to plan, we think between our M&I drilling, increasing our confidence in the early years of production there, that'll allow us to get our design engineering finalized for, those initial mining areas, that initial stope, to make that submission to the regulators, allowing us to go underground by the end of 2027 and potentially quite a bit sooner. The hydrology drilling will give us greater clarity on where the water table is. We think there's a decent potential that the area that we want to do our 100,000-ton bulk sample is going to be above the water table. If that's the case, it'll shave off a significant amount of time from that permitting process, meaning, permitted ounces are worth a hell of a lot more than unpermitted ones. We're going to be adding a significant amount of ounces with all of this expansion success we've been having, and the M&I resource in September, I think, is really going to capture the market's attention. I don't think there's anything in the industry in terms of grade profile like what we're going to be coming out with in September.
Well, and you got into the hydrology holes there and some of the permitting. Is there anything else you want to say as far as permitting? I get a lot of questions, Andrew, about what are the next steps. So, in addition to the resources, you're working on both the September and the January resources, in addition to the hydrology, which is setting up the permitting, the bulk sample, which you mentioned, and the economic study slated for next year. Is there anything else you want to say about permitting to give people's minds, a rough track to run on?
Yeah, well, listen, aside from the grade and the economics of the project, the best thing about it is the fact that it's all on private land, patented claims in Nevada, which means we circumvent most every federal government involvement from various regulatory agencies other than the ones that sort of scope like the Mining Act of 1872 or EPA, things like that. So we were already looking at a hugely expedited permitting process because of the lack of federal regulatory involvement. This isn't on BLM lands. It's not subject to the Department of the Interior. So we're already looking pretty good there. But you might have just recently seen about 2 weeks ago, the Trump administration instituted the Defense Production Act, effectively calling gold a critical mineral, and they're looking at doing everything they can, not just for gold, but for all domestic sources of mineral production to help them come online and expedite that permitting process. So, not only are they going to be looking at streamlining aspects of the Mining Act of 1872, certainly as it relates to reclamation, waste rock storage, things like that. Another key aspect of that, though, which I was very interested in seeing, was they're going to be getting involved with respect to their sovereign wealth fund in terms of backstopping and financing and providing financial assistance to development stage projects to bring them online. So, they might be getting involved in loans, assurances, taking equity positions even. And they also said that they're going to take an active role in finding private capital to help take projects like ours into production at favorable terms. So, our already streamlined permitting process could be even more streamlined given gold, which makes up a significant portion of our economics, is now a critical mineral, and you might see expedited review there. But we might be seeing some favorable economic support too. So we'll see. Beyond that, I've got a good chart in our slide deck which outlines our permitting process as we currently see it, and that envisions us being underneath the water table for our test mining. As I said, we might not be. We'll know this summer. But even if we are under the water table, we expect to be underground by the end of 2027. If we're not, then we might be able to fast track that even further. And keep in mind, I mean, the big idea here is, if we can start test mining and do a bulk sample of 100,000 tons of material at the grades that we've got in that area, and I expect those grades to ratchet up following our M&I resource, that's going to be a lot of revenue potential there. Most companies don't intend to make money during test mining. With our grade profile, it'd be hard not to.
Yeah, Andrea, you must be a mind reader. I was thinking that same thing when you mentioned the bulk sample. Like, you're probably going to get a nice paycheck on that too, bring in some capital and revenues to the company. So, definitely a lot going on here. And yeah, we've covered on the show in a number of interviews how significant that new executive order is from this administration on the U.S., not just from a permitting expedition standpoint, but also, like you say, playing matchmaker with some of the capital, bringing in the funding, trying to pair up private capital with government capital. So, an exciting time to be in the U.S. as a developer, and a lot of news flow on tap here for Blackrock Silver. So, for those listening in, if you want to follow along with the news at Blackrock Silver, there's going to be a lot of it, from drilling news to permitting news to water news to resource coming up in September is the next key milestone. And Andrew, we'll keep getting you back on whenever the drill results come out in batches. But for those listening in, definitely go to the link below this interview in the show notes. It takes you over to the Blackrock Silver website, straight to their news section, where you can sign up for updates to your inbox and your email, or you can just follow along with the news as it drops, because there's going to be a lot of it. Andrew, keep us posted, man. We'll get you back on for an update. And as always, looking forward to our next conversation.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.